Hi there, my van lifing friends or motorhoming friends out there. In this episode I will show you how to frost-proof or frost secure your van, your Adria twin van or a motorhome in general. I have made a video on that before, so I'll post a link to that above. And that link above is a video in Swedish on the general motorhome frost proofing, with the exception that I didn't have water locks in my sinks. So if you have, you need to frost proof them as well, either empty them or pour in some alcohol. But now to the Adria twin and frost proofing that. And as you know, this time of year, it's autumn, and we have the night frost coming up here, at least here in Scandinavia, and probably in other parts as well of the world. And if you don't frost proof your van or motorhome when you get home at Sunday, or whichever day you come home, you will have problems with leak and in worst case even more expensive problems with frost damages on your heater or boiler for warm water, and also the tubing for the water taps and the water tank, fresh water tank itself. So let's begin with this procedure, and I will show you how I do it. I start with turning off the water pump on the control panel. Then we get to the water taps. I set them to the mid, between warm and cold. As you see, there was some pressure left in that even if I turned off the pump. And I open this valve here, security valve. Open up here as well, mid between warm and hot. Also take this, you can clearly hear that water. I always drag out this hose for the shower as well. So you drain the hose itself, otherwise you will get frost in that as well and maybe damages. That's what I will do for now. Then into the rear of the van. This could differ on different models, of course, but I have a 640 SLX, Adria Twin 640 SLX, but that doesn't really matter. The next thing is to find your frost protection valve for your boiler, and you see that blue knob on the top. You just turn that in the 90 degrees like that, and then you pop out that button down there, which is closing or opening this valve. What's happening right here is that now I'm emptying the boiler, but on the Adria Twin you also empty the water tank pretty much fully if you just open that valve. However, to be secure, you also need to open the water tank valve, at least I do. And that's a trick with that as well. And you find the water tank on the right side, and I have opened this part, at least during the winters. And inside there you can reach a knob very easily. But I will show you that from the inside. I always do like this, and I turn it out open. Here you can see the knob behind the corner. So I turn that open a quarter of... Oh, now you hear the water flowing much better than only the frost valve. However, as I said, if you just open that a quarter turn, it would empty the tank down to that you have 20 liters left for traveling, if you need to. So be sure to fully open it, then you will empty the full tank. After this, I have another trick for you that is an option. You open the water tank. You can see the pump and the tubing to a pump down there. You can easily disconnect this tubing to the water pump. We just grab it and pull it down. And why are we doing this? For me, who use the van all year round in Scandinavian climate, this could be a good idea to disconnect that tube and turn the tubing with the pump on upside down to empty the tube, because it's a check valve in the bottom of that tube, so you keep the water in the system and not flow back to the tank. And that check valve prohibits the water to empty the tubing. So if you get frost, that tubing could, and actually do now and then, it disconnects the tube from the top. So when you start your van and you have had water in that tube and you will try to use your water, nothing happens. Then you can always check into the tank, because then the water pump is swimming around with that tubing loose in the water tank, and you don't get any water into your boiler or to your taps. So that's a good tip for you if you don't get water after frost nights or frosty periods. So I don't always do that maneuver. It just takes 1 minute extra or so, 2 minutes extra to do, and it saves a lot of problems. So I disconnect it, empty the tube and put it back in there. Normally, if you heat up the van before you fill it with water in winter time and in frosty conditions, if you heat up the van and fill up the water tank and just let it sit there, because I do this a couple of days before I travel and do trips winter time, then if it is ice in that tubing, it will melt during the time you have filled up the water and wait before you get onto the trips, if you do it 1 or 2 days before. However, it could disconnect the tube with icing, so it's already loose there, and then you need to do it afterwards. So that's the extra little thing that you need to be aware of. Okay, so one more little thing that I do is to restart the pump again. Maybe you hear that it's pouring under the van again. So you empty the pump when you're doing this, and also empty some tubing to the drainage. After that, I turn off the pump again and have it off, and that is very important. One more thing I do right now, and this is super important. When you have turned off the water pump for good, then you go to the flush button and push it for a few seconds. What you're doing when you're doing this is that you're emptying the magnetic valve that is under the toilet for flush the toilet. It's a magnetic valve to the water system, and that magnetic valve keeps water if you do not open it. And that is what you're doing when the pump is off and you push this button. If the pump is on, then you might press water into it when you do this again. Very important, otherwise you will have frost damages on your magnetic valve to flush the toilet. I also leave this tap open, as I told you. Very, very important to keep them open, because otherwise you could get frost damages on the taps. Okay, this was all, folks. This is what I do winter time, and I use the van more or less every weekend, even at the winter here in Scandinavia. And I have never had any problems. But before I did this, I got problems. And for you who have another type of motorhome with pressurized water system, be sure to check my other video that I linked in the beginning of the video up in the corner, because that also shows how to empty a filter container at the water pump for pressurized system. That is very important to get empty as well. Otherwise you will get frost damage on that also. This procedure with the van, even if I had my motorhome that I had before, or this van, the Adria twin, and probably like other vans, how they are built, It takes me like 2 minutes to empty everything. And of course you empty the toilet and you empty the waste tank, of course, but that is mandatory anyway if you don't want to get bad smell and other type of problems. Hope you think this was helpful for you, and please comment below if there is something that you also do if you store the van for a long time. I don't do that, I use it all the time and this works great. Ciao.